especially team sports, you're in this team environment and there's going to be other teammates who are going to be better than you at a certain piece of the game. How can you let that fuel you to inspire you? And that's the same in life, right? There's going to be people who are going to be better than you in other capacities. How can you use that to inspire you, not to compete against them, but inspire you to be the best that you can be with your talent? Because we all have talent in different capacities.
Welcome, everyone. Yes, this is about you. And today I have an incredible person with us that is going to share a journey that I think we're all going to resonate with and understand that there are so many twists and turns and expectations that get completely sidelined. The person I'm talking to today, Phebe, is this awesome heart-centered entrepreneur and accomplished soccer player. She's actually achieved so many accolades as an athlete, including being inducted into several, not just one, but several Hall of Fame. And here's the thing about this. She is not only a winning champion, titles. She's being recognized as an exceptional athlete at that highest level. She's also excelled in her career. We're going to hear all about network, marketer, earning top awards there too. She's been recognized by her company in numerous ways. And Phebe recently released, which I love, her first book. And it's a planned series. So we all have these, you all have heard, ReLaunch is not my only one. Phebe is going to be taking this book, Never Quit on a Bad Day, inspiring stories of resilience, and keep it going. She is, when you actually do read this, and I'm going to say this, it's going to energize you to overcome your challenges, strengthen you. And what I love, and you all know that's why we're here. We love the tools too, that head-based 3HQ, everyone, head, heart, highest self. And there's going to be this awesome part where she talks about gratitude for your specific journey, not everyone else's. Phebe, you are passionate about personal growth, and you're so incredible about empowering others to not just be stagnant, but reach that highest level. So super excited to have you on the show today. Phebe Trotman is in-house, and the cheers are going out from me and from the people that are listening right now. Thank you, Phebe, for being here.
Thank you so much, Hilary. I've been looking forward to this conversation. I love what you do. Your energy just radiates, and I'm so honored to be with you today.
Well, it's interesting because although I have had athletes on, I love specifically hearing your journey. And I think that we should start there in regards to the significant relaunch journey that got you where you are today. We're going to jump into the business side of it, but you have a really unique relaunch story to share with people listening right now.
I do. And it's interesting because as I think about it, and this is why I love what you do with this podcast, because I've had several relaunches. And I feel like that when you look back over your journey, that's something, and I know I'm going to have more relaunches down the road as well, too. And one of them I want to share is actually when I was a teenager. And so I had done quite well in soccer in terms of my community team. And so a couple of friends encouraged us to go out for a provincial team. And went out for this provincial team, fully expecting to make it because I had, done quite well again in the community. And I still remember it so vividly. A coach asked me, what position do you play? And I'm very much an attacking, goal scorer. And I shared that. And he was like, you're going to play defense. And I'm like, wait, what? And anyways, long story short, I ended up playing defense in this tryout tournament, if you will. And then the coach brings everybody in and starts going through this list of names of people who will make it to the next round, and my name wasn't called. And I remember just kind of standing there waiting and being like, oh, okay, maybe, he's going to call some more names, of course. And my name never got called. And I remember looking at a couple teammates who I was with in that community team, and they tried out too. And they had that look of like, we don't know what to say. And I was happy for them, but I was devastated. And I walked back to the car And I just remember crying. As soon as I saw my dad, I just started crying and crying and crying.
How old were you at this point?
I was about 13 years old.
Oh,
13 years old, and it was just
yeah.
crushing. And I remember and I cried for like a couple weeks straight. Like I was just so devastated by it. And the reason this is such a like relaunch is because I remember my parents kind of having this moment with me and just being like, okay, they probably just were tired of me crying. And basically said, okay, well, what now? What do you want to do in terms of soccer? Like, are you going to let one coach's decision determine what you do with this sport? Like, it's really up to you, and they weren't putting pressure either which way. And I remember kind of having this moment where I was like, you know what? No, like I want to be an impact player. And it was a relaunch in the sense that from that moment, I had to focus on what I could control, which was my work ethic, my attitude, my perspective, versus just going in and being like, well, I don't play that position, making the most of every single opportunity. And that's what I did. I was always with a ball outside in the backyard by myself a lot of times, sometimes with my older brother, sometimes with my dad, just playing. And that has just kind of carried through in terms of all my relaunches, if you will, because I've had that, like those reality checks where it's like, well, what can I control? What can I do to make the most of this particular opportunity and this situation? And that's just continued throughout my career as an athlete as well as
I want to ask you something really interesting. You thought that you were playing offense. Is that right? You were always an offense player. This coach says, no, we're going to put you in during this tryout period as a defense player. Mm-hmm. Why? I
have no idea. I honestly, it would be one of
because you're now a grown woman, and I love when we start to reassess the things that happened to. And you're saying this is like the most significant relaunch is like what was happening here, and being able to go back and be like, what? Because I'm going to do a little coaching here, because one thing that what we do as women and men that are listening is we put up the walls, right? Like, that happened. It is, you're saying, the most significant relaunch journey. But there was a reason, right? There's something that we need to get to the root of what really happened. Like, and I love how you're saying, hey, it's given me resilience. It's now like, but that was a gift. That was a gift that coach gave you. Switch it up and to have that failure. And I'd love for you to right now talk about that part of it. Like it was a gift. What about it do you now look at from, hindsight 2020, silver linings, as I often say? What would you say about that?
Absolutely. And I've done a lot of reflecting because I'm working on the next book and I share more details in that story in there. And one of the things that I realized looking back on it, like as you just said, it was a gift. It was an opportunity where maybe if I looked at this with a different lens and a different perspective, that coach saw in me something that I could adapt well to playing a new position, or maybe it was going to help me become a better attacking player because now I'm responding as a defensive player and learning how to maneuver that way and think from that perspective. So there's so many times where a situation can happen, and depending on the lens that we want to look at it through, it can impact us in so many different ways. And of course, back then, in terms of being, a 13-year-old, I was more so like, wait, what do you mean defense? I don't want to play I'm not a defender, and I didn't take that opportunity. And that's something now where I just encourage people to make the most of every opportunity. Had I looked at it as a gift back then and went, okay, it's not my favorite position, but I can learn this. This coach sees something in me that believes I can adapt well to this. This coach sees something unique in me that he feels that I can be an offensive threat and maybe a defense threat. Here's an opportunity a gift that I'm given to shine on the field in this position and to embrace it and run with it. And so, it's interesting because again, hindsight, we can look at those relaunch moments. And if we start to look at things with just a slightly different perspective, a different lens, it can set us up for success in so many ways in our lives.
And I know as a 13-year-old, it is really tough to do in the moment. It's tough to do even, even at the age we are now. It is. But it is interesting. And I love that you're writing these books and you're continuing to be very introspective on this, because so many times we pigeonhole ourselves. Like, this is what I do. Like, this is who I am, right? The big thing about the I am statements. And it's like, where did we come up with that? Where did it say that at 13, you were specifically an offense player? And these days, I know that on the CU football team, we've got somebody that actually plays both defense and offense, right? That was like unheard of years ago, to be able to flip both ways and everything. And yet it's happening. And so I really, when I heard you talk about this, I'm like, you're kind of that person that has been so blessed with just God-given talent. You're so good. And now, as we're getting older, where else has that come to life where you're like looking at it from a different lens?
That is something that I've had to do throughout my career as an athlete as well as an entrepreneur, where just taking moments to pause when situations happen, like certain situations, events happen in our lives, and we can determine what meaning we give them. And a lot of times when you're in it, it's very challenging. Like, I'm going through some personal stuff right now in terms of caregiver and with my mom and whatnot. And it's very challenging. And one of the things that I have to do is just pause and just be grateful, like grateful for the time, grateful for the good moments. And gratitude is just such a huge part in everything. Again, even in hindsight with that situation as a 13-year-old, being grateful that I even had the opportunity to play, grateful that this coach saw something in me, like reframing that and really just pausing and finding gratitude throughout life's challenges. Because what it doesn't minimize, gratitude doesn't minimize what you're going through when you're in that situation. It just allows you to have a little bit of a shift in your perspective. And sometimes that's what we need to get through that situation, right? And being grateful, not necessarily for, sometimes you're not grateful for that situation because you're in it, but can you be grateful for something else in your life? Be grateful that you're alive to experience that. Be grateful for your health or your friends, your family, and just finding something to be grateful for, because it will allow you to just get a little bit of shift of perspective. And sometimes that clarity, within that clarity, it's going to continue and keep you going.
100%. And I want to talk about the identity of an actual athlete, because I've coached a tremendous amount of athletes. And there's that point in time where you no longer can do what you used to do. And there's that moment of truth where it's your career, doing what you love so much, what you invested the hours upon hours. Like, I can also talk about an Olympic athlete that, God, you're so focused on what you're doing. And then it comes to an end. How did you handle the identity shift from full-time soccer player, tons of like recognition across everything, and then all of a sudden, it's like, it's now time to actually have a relaunch? How'd you do it?
Yeah. So when I decided to retire from playing professional soccer, and I talk a little bit about this because I hear when I say never quit on a bad day, I can hear people's ears being like, well, what do you mean? I never can quit? Not at all. And so when I decided to transition, and I like to say transition or move forward into like the next chapter, again, another relaunch, I did it from a place of, it wasn't after a game or a bad season. Really, it was after, it was just a time where I realized that my priorities had shifted a little bit. I was focused on starting this business, and I knew it was going to take a lot of time and effort, same way that I put that into my soccer career. And I wanted to have time for my friends and family. And I'd missed a lot of events, being on the road and games and things like that, which at the time, that was my focus, was soccer. And I just realized my priorities had shifted a little bit, and I wanted to put this energy into it. And so one of the things that I encourage people to do is, when you're going to, transition, whether it's a career in terms of athletics, whether it's a career, or you're just moving into kind of that next phase, look at it as you're moving forward into something else, right? And take the same experiences and like life skills that you learned in one phase of your life is going to carry you forward into the next phase of it. The person that you've grown into throughout those experiences is what's helping you and equipping you for the next chapter. And that's really how I looked at it, is I'm moving forward into this next chapter of my life. I loved my athletic career, and I'm so grateful for it. And I still play soccer as well. well. I still do play. And I love that competitive outlet over there. So I keep that going in terms of still playing. It's just at a different level. And I really embraced that I was moving forward into something else. It wasn't about, well, what am I leaving behind? It's focusing on what am I moving towards? Just like when I started my career, moving into the next phase of my athletic career in terms of university, right? And then university finished. And then I was moving into the professional, like looking forward into what your next step is, create that excitement around that.
So there's a great book, Ikigai, and it's about, how people can take the purpose of your life and what you do. And for those that haven't read it, go. Ikigai is the book. It has like blue and it's got little petals on the front. I think they're, the cherry blossoms. And the reason that you sparked something in my mind is that it talks about that in Japan, there's no word for retire. It's you are moving forward. It's again, continuing your own journey, your own purpose of life, and the self-improvement, constantly moving forward, that sense of gratitude. And they have one of those, they're like the hotspot for one of the largest centennials, right? People over 100. And how do you get there? And so I think what you're saying is so profound, because so many of us, whether it's moving from corporate to entrepreneurship, whether it's, even on a personal level, getting a divorce. I've been divorced, and not having it be like that negative, like I'm retiring, I'm giving it up. As you said, you're like, I still do. I love going out there and playing soccer. It still fuels you. And so as you were thinking about writing this book, and I love that the name is Never Quit on a Bad Day, Inspiring Stories of Resilience. When did you get that inclination that, you know what, I need to write this book? I need to do this. Because book writing, as we all know, is a labor of love. And so what really sparked you?
It's interesting. You talked about purpose, and I have felt on my heart that for the last 5-7 years, if you will, to create something that would help and encourage and inspire people, just because I've been inspired and encouraged by so many people over my journey. And so I wanted to create something to give out into the world that same type of encouragement and inspiration. And I was sharing this with a couple of dear friends of mine. And so they were the ones who were like, well, you should write a book. And I chuckled because, I have a lot of life goals, and writing a book really wasn't on there. That being said, I'm very open. Funny. It really wasn't. I wasn't, there's some people who I'm like, yes, write that book. But really, I've always been very open. I've been open to, again, the purpose and how that how that takes shape. I've been open to, just kind of moving through it, if you will. And so when they suggested write a book, I kind of paused a little bit and I was like, but I was open again. And we talked about it. And I said, well, if I'm going to write a book, it has to do two things. Number one, it has to help and encourage people. And number two, I really have to feel passionate about what the book's going to be about. And so I was kind of simmering on it that evening. And the month before, I had an incredible honor. I was inducted into the Coquitlam Sports Hall of Fame, and we had an interview process. And in that, the interviewer asked me, what has sport given me? And I shared a lot of the life skills.
I love that question.
Yeah, it's a great question. And so I shared a lot of those life skills. And I shared, I've had incredible highs participating in sport, national championships on every level with incredible teams. And I've had personal accolades as well. And I said, the only reason, though, I've been able to have those highs are because of the lows, right? Getting cut from that team, sitting on the bench, not making the starting lineup, maybe not even getting in a game, and pushing through all of that. Because I pushed through all those tough things is why I was able to have those highs. And so that night when I was simmering on, the book idea, that's when it hit me. And I was like, that's what I want to write a book about, the story behind the story. Because oftentimes, people will see the list of accolades. They don't know about the 13-year-old who cried her eyes out over and over, for weeks on end.
They never know the behind, right? Unless we share it, unless we talk about the real side of you. So I got to ask, what has sports given you? What has it taught you that the listeners right now are like, yeah, that's really cool? Because, it is interesting. We're all encouraged at a young age. And I have, 3 kids and 2 bonus kids. And I'll never forget the soccer field with these, kids when they're young, and they just go whoop over to the ball. They're all running. They're not staying in their own positions. And it's we've all been there. Whether, we were athletes ourselves or we have kids that were going through it. What have been the biggest takeaways for you?
Sport, and I just want to encourage parents listening out there. I believe wholeheartedly that every child should participate in sports at some, just even as an experience, right? Because there's so many life skills you gain out of team sports as well as individual sports. And again, whether or not a child continues on in athletics, it's really not about that. It's just the experience of it. And so I actually oversee a program right now for kids, 3-year-olds to 7-year-olds. And I absolutely love it because
so cute. That age is so cute.
I'm like, I know that. But sport, it gives you so many life skills in the sense of like teamwork, right? It helps you push through, team making friendships, like getting to know other kids that you're playing with in terms of like those little wins, learning to celebrate those little wins along, whether it's, a child didn't use their hand today at the soccer practice, I'm going to celebrate that. Or it might be them scoring a goal, resilience, right? Being able to bounce back after disappointments. How do you move through that? Time management as you get older in terms of sport, being a university athlete, you have to manage, your athletics, you have to manage your schoolwork. I was working a part-time job. Like there's a lot of pieces to that, right? Just in terms of attitude, respect, like learning to respect the sport, respect your teammates, respect your coaches, appreciation for everything, realizing, it's humbling as well too. And it's inspiring because especially team sports, you're in this team environment and there's going to be other teammates who are going to be better than you at a certain piece of the game. How can you let that fuel you to inspire you? And that's the same in life, right? There's going to be people who are going to be better than you in other capacities. How can you use that to inspire you, not to compete against them, but inspire you to be the best that you can be with your talent? Because we all have talent in different capacities. And so I just feel like, and there's I can keep going, but really those are.
I got to say this, I love what you said about like, encourage your kids to do sports or your grandkids or your nieces, your nephew. And I do like the idea of even as you get older to be in some type of, sport environment with that connection. I have 2 funny stories. All right. 7th grade, I was really fast in the pool. I swam against, an Olympic athlete that ended up, Dara Torres, who ended up winning an Olympic medal. And I was able to not get totally lapped. And everyone's like, oh, Hilary's a good swimmer. Well, then the end of summer comes along and Coach Hooker was my coach. And she said, I came back from summer vacation and she says, oh, in front of everyone, oh, Hilary, you developed hips this summer. And I'm like, oh, for God's sake, it was like crushing. And so I immediately gave up swimming because I'm like, okay, the coach, right? But I was really, my jam was around tennis. I love tennis. I played, all throughout high school. But the funniest, I got a boyfriend who ended up being a super soccer player. And this is my soccer, I'm connecting with you right now. So when I'm in 10th grade, I decide I'm going to go out for the soccer team. And again, I was a tennis player and that was my thing. And so the first game I'm in, and they have me playing left wing, and a ball is kicked from the goalie. And I think I should head it because we had practiced heading the day before. All right, Phoebe, I head the ball and you know what happened. I go down for the count. I end up with a concussion. The guy that I was so, ended up, dating him for about 4 or 5 years. He had to carry me off the field. And when I finally was like out of this dazed and confused, I said to him, I'm done. I'm never playing this sport again. But even the lesson that it taught me, like, I've had that the failures are good. Like I just assumed I could go out there and I can do this.
I love that.
It's so, I love what you're doing. I think it is so important. And I love that you're getting these little kids to really, love the game. But now as we're moving forward, you are also a very successful businesswoman. And you gave up that full-time soccer to go out into the business world, and where you are today is a reflection of everything combined. And I'd love to have you share, what made you get into specifically what you're doing now, And what would you say are the biggest takeaways right now? Like the things that people listening are like, ooh, I need to do that.
Yeah, so my transition into kind of the business world, if you will, was through network marketing. And so I had always had this kind of entrepreneurial spirit. I was doing a bunch of little side projects, if you will. And it was interesting because right away I kind of went into it being like, well, of course I'm going to, again, having that like, oh yeah, this will be fine. It'll be easy, if you will. And wanting, not necessarily following a system or the structure. And it wasn't until kind of I flipped the hat and put on like what did I do for soccer success? Well, you're consistent, you're training on a regular basis, you're setting goals, you're going after those goals and transferring that over into like this business. And that's when I started creating success. And one of the beautiful things in terms of network marketing is that team aspect. And because coming from an athletics background where I focused more on my team sport, if you will, that transferred over. And so it was fun. And I love like the team building piece of it. I love to collaborate and working with a group of people to accomplish a common goal, if you will. And that common goal is a win for them. It's different wins, if a little bit different than the soccer field, if you will. That being said, the same principles transfer over into terms of, appreciating your teammates, working, really creating a team where everyone's moving together for a common goal. And I think that's just so important in the business world. The more we can focus on how can we help someone else, like even when it's your client, how can you help that client with whatever they're looking to do? And when we focus from that, and that's why I say heart-centered, when we look at that other individual as a person and they have their own goal of what they want to accomplish and how can we help them accomplish that, that's where the magic lies in terms of creating success. And that's just something that I've continued on to do. And even in terms of this next kind of phase with the book and whatnot is focusing on like, how can I put myself in the reader's shoes? And what were things that I learned in, I have bookshelves, books all around me. What are some of the things that have helped me in terms of my journey that I can now share with someone else? So when we can just lead from looking at that other person and how we can help that other person, that's where the magic really comes together.
So when you think about bad days, we all have them.
Mm-hmm.
We all have them. It's part of life, right? We all have relaunches. That's part of life. You say and you talk about the never quit on a bad day. How are you doing that? How do you help people? How are you successfully using what you're teaching people in your book?
Everything that is in that book is everything I'm doing right now, because yeah, as you said, there are life has challenges and there's a lot that we have to go through and grow through. I love how John Maxwell says that, like grow through those challenges. And so a lot of what I'm doing right now, when I have those bad and tough days, if you will, part of it's perspective, right? Of also reframing. How can we look at this through, again, as we're saying, that different lens. So it's a lot of times it's reframing it from a lens perspective, a lot of gratitude of just like,
wait. So let's just say something bad happens, client, you thought you were going to close this, great deal, and it ends up either getting kicked to the curb or pushed out. What do you immediately, you get the call? Yeah, Phoebe, oh yeah, I know I said I would do this, but you know what? It's just not going to work out right now. What do you immediately go do?
It varies. So let's say, and I've had situations like that in terms of like.
I think we all have, right?
Yeah, where they're like, I'm done. Okay.
If you're in sales, we all get this one.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, right away, obviously, you're going to have the emotions of, depending on the client, there might be the disappointment, the frustration, you're just like, oh, I like that person. Oh, you have that sadness.
Yeah.
So
you're like, oh, I would have liked.
Give yourself, for me personally, I'm going to take a few minutes with it. I'm not just going to glaze over it. I'm going to acknowledge those feelings. I'm a human being, right? We're going to have those moments. Sometimes if I'm super like, I might go work out, just change my state, right? Get out of where I am, go for a walk, go for a run, go to boot camp. I'm going to do something physical, oftentimes to change my state. Sometimes I'm just going to pause there. If with this reframe, again, depending on the person or the situation, okay, not necessarily what I would have chosen. However, this frees me up for something else. And I do really have to have that openness to like, okay, not exactly what I would have written. However, that's not how life works. And what next? Just the same way this person came into my life and brought a flow of business and excitement and whatnot, the next person can do that as well too. So having that moment of being grateful, again, it's a process. It isn't, I don't want anyone listening to be like, oh, you just next. No, it's not that at all, right? You feel the emotions, you work through that, but also realizing that you've been through, and this is something that I have to remind myself constantly with everything I'm, kind of dealing with right now. I've been through tough stuff before. And people listening, you've been through tough stuff before because you're still here. So you can go through and grow through this next tough situation, if you will. And if it's a
Totally.
client, that's one thing, in terms of just again and reframing and what can you learn from that past experience to take forward to the next, so either it doesn't happen the same way, or even if it does, can you move through it a little bit quicker the next time?
Those are like that book where, you're giving the words of wisdom that we all need to be hearing. People, go back, re-listen to this. It is so good. So Phebe, I always like to do this at the end. And if you were going over to someone's house, if you're coming to my house and you're like, I want to bring something that I just love, like I love it, I want to share this, like whether it's beauty, whether it's sports, whatever it is, what is your go-to gift right now that you would want to, like, I really like this?
Oh, interesting. My mind right away thought, like, I'm coming over to your house, so I'm going to bring a dessert.
Oh, okay, that's really good too.
Right
Okay,
away.
bring the dessert,
Yes.
and then is there, like, it's my birthday. Like, what would you? Oh, I know she'd love this. What else would you do?
A gift that's going to encourage you. And it can take many different shapes. It might be a journal with a really cool saying on the front of it. It might be a candle with a nice saying. Again, it's going to depend on what you, being my
Yeah.
friend, I'm going to be like, you know what? I can see her wanting to write something. It's going to be something that's going to encourage you along your journey, because as we've talked about, everybody has their own journey. And it's just what I feel like is kind of one of the gifts, or what I'm here to do, is just encourage people along their journey and be a little cheerleader, to be like, you can keep doing this. You've got this.
Okay, what I would actually really like is the lipstick you're wearing. Who makes that? Because that is so good.
We can do that. We can do that. That I can bring over for sure too.
Okay, so Phebe Trotman, how do we get to hear more about you? How can we follow you? How can you light us up?
Absolutely. So my website is very easy to remember, neverquitonabadday.com, as well as that's Instagram, Facebook, and then also my personal pages, which are just Phebe Trotman. Phoebe, no O, gotta say that. So
that is interesting. It's Phebe. Phebe. Trotman is totally Trotman. We're going to put all of this in the show notes. I'm also going to make sure you give us the name of that lipstick, because it is on fire on you. And for everyone, please go explore, read the book. This woman is lighting it up. She is truly a world changer, and I can hardly wait to continue to follow you. Read the next book, Resilience. So important, right? Resilience to get through relaunches. And everyone, keep in mind that it is about live now, today, love now, and relaunch now into your next best journey. Everyone, will see you next week. Thanks again for being here. If you like this video and want to get more like it, head over here